In the golden haze of a Miami sunset, the private yacht club on Star Island shimmered like a floating palace of pure privilege. Crystal champagne flutes clinked against marble tabletops. Super yachts rocked gently in their slips, each one longer and more extravagant than the last. Laughter drifted across the water, sharp, expensive laughter that never quite reached anyone's eyes. Jamal Thompson moved through this world the way he always had, quietly, efficiently, eyes down but senses razor-sharp. At 29, he had mastered the art of becoming invisible. Black server in a crisp white jacket, tray balanced perfectly, smile set to polite neutrality. He knew the unspoken rules here better than most of the members ever would. Speak only when spoken to. Anticipate needs before they're even voiced. Never let them see the exhaustion, the late-night study sessions, or the student loans that felt heavier than any silver tray he carried. Tonight the club was packed for the quarterly member soiree. Reginald Thorne arrived fashionably late, as always. Hedge fund king, regular on the Forbes list, the kind of man who measured his entire existence in commas and extra zeros. His linen suit was custom-made, his tan came from private islands, and his voice cut through conversations like a yacht slicing open the water. He claimed the best table overlooking the marina, surrounded by his usual court. Venture capitalists, real estate tycoons, a former senator, now consulting for oil companies. They were already deep into their third bottle of Chateau Petrus when Jamal approached to refill their water glasses. Reginald glanced up, eyes narrowing the way a predator sizes up something beneath him. He leaned back in his chair, swirling his wine, and spoke just loud enough for his table, and the tables nearby. "To hear, listen, barbarian," he said, his tone dripping with practiced arrogance. The word hit like a slap. Barbarian, the old Greek term for anyone whose language sounded like meaningless babble to ancient Greek ears. Outsider, uncivilized, less than. Jamal's hand paused for half a second on the water pitcher. No one else at the table reacted. Most of them probably didn't even recognize what language Reginald had used. His friends chuckled politely, assuming it was some private inside joke. Reginald wasn't finished. He leaned forward, eyes locked on Jamal's face, and continued slowly, deliberately, savoring every word. The barbarian has no education. He has no civilized soul, only the body of a slave. He barked a short laugh and raised his glass in a mocking toast. To civilization, he said in English, switching back as if nothing unusual had happened. The table exploded with laughter. One man slapped Reginald on the back. Another mimed cracking a whip. Jamal stood perfectly still, water pitcher steady, face unreadable. Inside him, something shifted. He had heard worse. Far worse. Growing up in Overtown, the son of a single mother who cleaned houses for families like these, he had learned early that words could cut deeper than fists. But this was different. This wasn't casual street talk or lazy racism. This was intentional, scholarly. Knowledge turned into a weapon. Reginald had no idea who he was really talking to. Jamal set the pitcher down carefully on the side table. He straightened, shoulders squaring just enough to be noticed. Then, in a voice clear and calm, loud enough to reach the surrounding tables, he answered, "He who mocks the educated reveals his own barbarism." The laughter stopped dead. Reginald's glass froze halfway to his lips. His friends exchanged confused glances. A woman at the next table, a retired classics professor from the University of Miami, actually gasped. Jamal continued, calm, unhurried, his pronunciation and rhythm perfect from years of graduate seminars, late nights with dense dictionaries, and countless hours listening to recordings of how ancient Greek was once spoken. Socrates would pity you, my friend. Socrates taught that the only true evil is ignorance. And you are demonstrating that ignorance very clearly right now. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. Then he quoted a famous passage from Plato's Apology, the speech Socrates gave at his trial, delivering it with the quiet power of someone who had lived with those words for years. I'm that kind of man. But the God is truly wise, and his oracle declare that I am the wisest because I do not think I know what I do not know. And this seems to be what the god means, that human wisdom is worth little or nothing, and that the wisest among you is the one who, like me, understands that his wisdom amounts to almost nothing. Jamal's voice never rose. It didn't need to. The words carried their own ancient weight, precise, devastating, impossible to ignore. Reginald's face drained of color, then flushed a deep, angry red. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No sound came out. Around them, the yacht club had fallen into an unnatural silence. Phones slipped out of pockets. Red recording lights began to blink. A waiter 2 tables away froze mid-step. The retired professor stood slowly, hands clasped, eyes shining with something close to pride. Jamal wasn't finished. He tilted his head slightly, polite as ever. If you would like to continue this conversation in the language you chose, sir, I am ready. Or perhaps you would prefer the comic style of Aristophanes. He wrote many voices for outsiders, but none of them were ever as crude as your arrogance. A ripple of stunned laughter moved through the nearby tables. Someone clapped, once, twice, then more hands joined in. The applause built slowly, steadily. Reginald slammed his glass down so hard that red wine sloshed over the rim. "How dare you?" he started in English, his voice cracking. Jamal switched back to perfect English without missing a beat. "I apologize if my response surprised you, sir. I was simply replying in the language you selected, the same way you did." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small, worn notebook, the one he carried to jot down thesis ideas during short breaks. He opened it to a marked page and placed it on the table, facing Reginald. "Page 142 of my current chapter draft. Plato's Republic, Book 6. The Allegory of the Ship of State. The owner is strong but deaf and short-sighted. The sailors fight over the steering, each one convinced he should be in charge, even though none of them understands navigation. The true pilot, the philosopher, is laughed at and called a useless stargazer." Jamal looked directly into Reginald's eyes. "You quoted Aristophanes to insult me, but Aristophanes saved his sharpest mockery for the pretenders, the men who believe money and status equal real wisdom." Reginald shoved his chair back, the legs scraping loudly across the polished floor. "You're fired," he snarled. "I'll have your job by morning. I know the board. I know the owner." Jamal didn't flinch. "You could try, sir, but I suspect the board will be far more interested in the video that is already spreading." He nodded toward the phones, still recording from every direction. The retired professor, Dr. Helen Marwood, Professor Emerita of Classics, stepped forward. Her voice carried the calm authority of someone who had taught for over 40 years. "Mr. Thorne, I have taught ancient Greek longer than you have been alive." That young man just delivered an almost perfect version of Socrates' defense speech from Plato's Apology. Accent, rhythm, everything correct. He quoted Plato without a single mistake. If anyone here is unfit for civilized company tonight, I suggest it is not him. The applause grew louder. Reginald looked around, suddenly realizing how many eyes were on him. The whispers, the recordings, the sudden shift in who held the power. He stormed toward the exit, shoving past a waiter who didn't step aside fast enough. His friends hesitated, then trailed after him, mumbling awkward excuses. Jamal stood still for a long moment, breathing evenly. Dr. Marwood approached him. "Young man," she said softly, "that was extraordinary. What is your name?" "Jamal Thompson, Mom." "Are you studying classics?" "Second-year PhD candidate. University of Miami. I work here part-time to cover tuition and rent." She smiled, eyes bright. "Give me your advisor's name. I want to write him a letter of recommendation. And one for Princeton. And Yale. You deserve better funding." Jamal blinked. "Mom, Don't thank me yet," she said. "Thank yourself. You just reminded every person in this room what real education looks like." The club manager appeared, face pale. "Jamal, Mr. Thorne is demanding." Jamal interrupted gently. "I'll finish my shift, sir. Then I'll collect my things." But the manager shook his head. "No, the board president just texted. Mr. Thorne's membership has been suspended pending review. Yours, well, they would like to offer you a full scholarship stipend, complete tuition coverage, and a position as guest lecturer for the club's cultural series, if you're interested. Jamal looked out at the marina, at the lights dancing on the dark water. He thought of his mother, who still cleaned houses on these very islands. He thought of the nights he fell asleep with Greek books open, highlighter still in his hand. He thought of every time someone had looked at him and seen only the uniform. Then he thought of Socrates, humble, relentless, completely unafraid. He turned back to the manager. "I'll finish the shift," he said. "After that, I'll think about it." The applause followed him as he walked back toward the kitchen, tray in hand, head high. By morning, the video had spread quietly but powerfully through Miami's elite circles. Reginald Thorne's name was trending in hushed group chats and private messages. Jamal Thompson's inbox began filling with emails from professors, alumni, even a small foundation offering research grants. He didn't answer any of them right away. Instead, he sat on the small balcony of his apartment, opened his worn copy of Plato's Apology, and read the final lines to himself in a quiet voice. Then he smiled. The so-called barbarian had spoken, and a man who thought himself civilized had been exposed.